All right, welcome everybody. This is Pathways to Purpose, episode Life of Technology. I'm Steve Morales. This is
I'm Alfredo Martinez, and this is Robert Wilson.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and who you are.
I am Robbie Wilson. I teach a lot of things here at La Vega, mainly photography. Started doing some esports recently, and then in the past I've also done some art classes. This is going to be my 10th year at La Vega High School.
Oh, you've been here for a while.
Yeah.
What time of the day do you do your work best?
Definitely evenings. I'm more of a night owl, but I don't do that as often anymore just because it's hard to do with a small baby. So I've started to do a lot of my stuff earlier, but I just do what I can.
So you said about games, like what got you interested in games?
Interested in games. A lot of my stuff started out late high school and college. I started getting with some friends in college where we would start out doing some board games. We would meet up after work. And then that kind of transitioned into having our own Minecraft server 10 years ago. And we would bring all of our computers all into one big room and hook everybody up to the same network. Because we could only do LAN back then. We couldn't host your own server quite yet. But yeah, that's kind of what got me started in a lot of the stuff I'm doing now.
What games do you play? Is it just Minecraft or?
Currently, I don't play any games because I don't really have free time.
Yeah, he's always busy.
What's the biggest lesson you've learned over your career?
Biggest lesson that I could say on this podcast is tricky. I think maybe the biggest lesson that I've learned here is just to be quiet and feel it out for a while. And then once you know the environment, know the people, then you can try to start introducing some change slowly. But it just takes a little bit of time to build up that respect and repertoire just before you start saying that you know how to do everything.
What's the most, let's say, disappointing technology thing you purchased? Anything? Camera,
Anything.
Videos, even a game?
Let me think. Disappointing technology. I don't think I've been disappointed. I try to do a lot of my research ahead of time, especially here at La Vega. We don't want to spend a whole bunch of money just to not use it. So I want to make sure we use everything. And so I do a lot of research ahead of time, usually weeks. I think one of the most frustrating technology things that we've bought, I don't know if y'all know, but we have 2 telescopes. I enjoy them a lot, and it's really fun to work with those with students. But it took a while to figure out all the different pieces that we needed, because you can't just buy a telescope and everything works. We had to buy a telescope and then buy an adapter for a camera and then have the wires that connect the camera to the laptop and then get the software that aims the telescope. And so there's just a bunch of different adapters, and none of them are made by the same people. So that's been, and then every time we wanted to buy something else, it would take a couple weeks to get it in. So that's been really challenging, but it's been enjoyable.
What about the best thing you ever purchased, technology-wise?
It might be the same thing, because after everything was working and I got all the different pieces from all the different vendors, it's really rewarding to aim the telescope up there with a camera attached to it and be able to take a picture of the Andromeda Galaxy or see Saturn with your own eyes.
I also want to add on to that question. How much did all of that cost?
Yeah, we pieced it together slowly because it was from different people. We couldn't just buy it outright. I think we spent maybe $8,000 altogether.
That's a lot.
Yeah. How do you cope with stressful situations? Because I know like you're a teacher.
Yeah. You might see this with some other teachers, but I just ignore it until it's super necessary. It's not a good habit, but I'll often just put it off as long as I can. And then, so I procrastinate a lot.
Yeah.
Right.
until it's the only thing I can focus on. I think sometimes that having that pressure makes it easier to focus. I don't get distracted as much. Sometimes something that helps is if I will set my own deadline ahead of like an actual deadline.
Yeah.
And that especially helps if especially now with a kid, I kind of have to set those deadlines a lot sooner. But yeah, I try to just ignore it and deal with what I can. And then once I'm actually in that time that I've allotted to work on that thing, I can just buckle down a lot easier, spend more time on it.
Okay. What keeps you going? Like, what's your motivation
For what?
for just in general, like life? What keeps you?
In life. I think generally I'll just stick to education. I think I just really enjoy seeing students, enjoy something, and bringing something that they enjoy to it. So I really enjoy seeing that discovery of learning how to do something, and then just seeing that moment click of, oh, I know how to do this, and this is really fun. I really enjoy this, and turning those moments into hobbies. So whenever students are learning something and they think it's really cool, and you can start seeing the gears turn of like how they can use this for their own stuff. We see that a lot with like the esports thing. Yeah. Since we're doing AV production, a lot of those students will start learning how to do the programs, and then they'll use the same tools and the same workflow for some of the streaming that they might do at home with YouTube or Twitch.
What's the best classes you have as of like students-wise? Because I know you do photography and esports, and you used to do art, but not this year.
Yeah. So just, what do you mean by best, like best behaved?
Not best behaved and like what you like most. Yeah, what you enjoy.
That's hard. Yeah, that's hard to say. I think it's hard to compare because they're all kind of different classes. So like my photography class is very task oriented, and this year they're great. Everybody seems to really enjoy the projects that we're working on. Even the students that I wouldn't think that they would. You just get them with the right group and they're enjoying it. And then esports, everybody's kind of doing their own game. But it's fun to see like some of the collaboration and building that community that they wouldn't otherwise have without the class. So I dodged the question, but I think that's going to be my answer.
What unique skills have helped you to become successful today?
What skills?
Yeah.
To like I think who you are today.
Yeah.
Communication's a big one, kind of like what I was talking about with like what I've learned or what like my advice in this education field. Just getting that communication down. Skills outside of that, y'all are familiar with it, but knowing how to Google. Y'all have probably spent a lot of time trying to figure something out through Google or ChatGPT, and then realizing even if you type in the question, you don't necessarily get the right answer. So learning how to do those things, how to put things in quotes, how to add subtractions to your searches, and then learning how to read documentation. So like if there's a manual for something, a lot of people think it's super boring, but knowing how to read documentation has been super useful for my job now.
So I don't know if you're a business guy like that, but if you could start a business tomorrow, what would it be?
Start a business. Okay, yeah, I'll talk about some of my businesses that I've had in the past. So in college, I did have like a side business for senior photography. That was like a side thing in addition to the regular work that I did in college. I was just trying to take whatever jobs I could just because I was trying to pay my way through college. And then since then, I've done a little bit of woodworking. So I did a lot of laser engraving and cutting projects for some board games that I would sell through Etsy. I've also done some 3D printing for board games as well. And so, 3D printing and woodworking Both of those have been really fun. Done some furniture in the past, but yeah.
So about college, like some people have it like hard, some people have it easy. Like was it stressful for you, or was it like an easy to go through?
Yeah, mine was kind of in the middle. I did qualify for the full amount for the Pell Grant. Several of y'all are familiar with that probably by now,
Yeah, I heard about
doing the FAFSA. So I did qualify for the full amount with my family situation, and that did help a lot. But it wasn't enough. And so I did have to work my way through college instead of taking out loans. It's a tricky situation because depending on the field and depending how well you think that you're prepared, loans can be really good. Because one thing that I regret about looking back is that I can see that I did land in a job in my field. I did end up getting a salary, but I didn't know that was going to happen. And so getting a loan would have been better for me, I think, looking back, because I missed out on pretty much the whole college experience. I did community college just so I could stay at home and save those expenses.
Yeah.
And then I transferred up to UNT and then continued working there. And so anytime that I wasn't in class, I was working about 30 or 40 hours a week on top of classes. So yeah, I didn't really have any kind of the college experience, and that's a big regret.
So like going to college, you knew what you wanted to be? When you wanted to go?
Yeah, kind of. Kind of funny. So in high school, I figured out that I did enjoy the idea of teaching, but I saw how stressed out some of the core teachers were.
Yeah.
And so I enjoyed math and science. I thought about doing math, but then saw how stressful it was. So my senior year in high school, I took an Art 1 class. Found out I was pretty good at it, at least the technical side of it.
Yeah.
So I went to UNT for art education, and it worked out for me.
Say, what is your biggest pet peeve?
Okay, yeah, this is a common teacher one, but we'll say having to repeat instructions. Yes.
You do that a lot. You do that a lot.
Yeah, I do have to. I have to do that a lot because people like to start doing their own thing and just ignore what we're supposed to be doing. So I've tried to start doing more of the video or text instructions in Google Classroom for the classes that works for, and that way I'll give instructions once, and then anytime after that I say I already said it. You can look on Google Classroom, but just in general, yeah, having to repeat myself is pretty frustrating.
What would you do if you had enough money for the rest of your life and you didn't have to work?
Yeah, so some weird thing. This is a big can of worms, but something that my wife and I had talked about, if this ever like hypothetically happened, we had looked into making almost like a magnet school-ish. So it's still being able to pull public students and not having to worry about private school and the cost associated with that. But boarding schools apparently do really well as for education and just having that kind of structure. So I don't know. I don't think I'd ever actually do that, or I don't know if I would do that if I did have a ton of money all of a sudden. But it's something that's been fun to think about, especially in those high school years. There's definite cons with family, but just education-wise, it's a neat thing to research and look into.
So would you change anything if you would go back in college from everything you learned? Would you change anything? Anything you've done in high school, college, or as of right now?
Kind of touched on this already, but I would probably take out student loans just to have more of that community built up. I was able to get that degree in paper, but missed out on a lot of the community connections and building up a network. So that was a little sad looking back.
Okay. What would you do if you were asked to perform a task that you're not familiar with?
I would do as much research as possible on it. And if there is a manual, I would read it.
We're gonna end it here. So that'll be all for our podcast for professional technology. And thank you for having us.
Yeah,
This
thanks
is
for
Robert
having me.
Wilson and Steve Morales and I'm Perry Martinez.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was fun.